Ya yo, everyone. That is your host for this video, Dr. Jace Attorney here, back with I guess you could call it like a news coup type of thing. I mean, it's not structured like a news coup in all honesty, but in a way, we are giving some additional information for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. There's some new tidbits that were revealed recently with, I think it was a recent interview with the game's producer, Jun Furutani. I think that's how you say his name, and I think that's how you pronounce it. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But there's some additional information about the game that was revealed recently in an interview. Mind you, the source regarding this information, I would, you know, it seems to be reliable, but I would kind of like, you know, be a little bit what's the word, optimistically cautious, right, on what's being said in this interview, just because, at least for me personally, I prefer my sources to be from more reliable places. A lot of this stuff comes from these Twitter affiliates, Sophian LaGeek, Yakai's, and Lon SSJ, and of course we have Super Chronicles, who's usually they seem to be pretty on point when it comes to like giving like leaks and stuff on anything Dragon Ball related. So we're kind of riding on their coattails at the moment to assume that this is reliable, but just, you know, full disclosure on where the information is coming from so that you guys can make this assessment for yourself. But I figured, still, assuming that it's true information, it might be something that we want to talk about a little bit. So first and foremost, this is one of the first few things that they announced. Story mode in Sparking Zero. Now, this was in the interview that I just mentioned. The producer basically said a complete story mode will be present following and evolving from Tenkaichi 3. So that's interesting to note, because a lot of people do not like Tenkaichi 3's story mode. They like everything else about the game's roster, the game's mechanics, and everything. But it turns out the story mode ain't it for Tenkaichi 3. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I hope when they say you're modeling it after or evolving from Tenkaichi 3, that means it's an improvement, more so than you're kind of hoping that it's the same as Tenkaichi 3, if that makes sense. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. I hope it's not, because, you know, Dragon Ball stories throughout their games, especially in the PS2 era, you know, and even in the 360 era, they started realizing, you know, how many times can we retell the same story over and over and over and over again? And in new and interesting ways. So sometimes in, like, for example, my personal favorite Budokai game, like I'm calling all of them, like the Budokai and Budokai Tenkaichi series from the PS2 days, was Budokai 3. That game was my bread and butter. I know people like Tenkaichi 3 better, and they say it's the definitive Dragon Ball fighting experience, but for me, it was Budokai 3. In Budokai 3, I love Budokai 3's combat, but in full disclosure, Budokai 3's story was garbage. All you got was like these little text bubbles with like static images of the character, like, you know, going back and forth. And that's it. That's your story. And like it really pales in comparison to the way the story was told in, say, for example, Budokai 1, where in Budokai 1, you had an actual like story. You had cutscenes. You had 3D animation that was illustrating the combat and the story beats that were going on. Some of them were terrible. Like I know one of Cell's infamous lines when he's charging up the Kamehameha and he's like, "Time to die!" And it's just so weird. But you guys get what I mean. I don't think that game's story was all that good. Budokai 3's. So I'm hoping, long story short, for Budokai Tenkaichi 3, they take a page from what worked in the past and what didn't, and they make it good. Now, here's the other thing about that, right? If they're going to have a story mode, how much of the story are they going to adapt? There's a big question there. Obviously, you have to do... The baseline is Dragon Ball Z. You have to, regardless of how many times we want to roll our eyes, you have to retell the original story of Dragon Ball Z specifically, starting from Saiyan Saga to Buu Saga. Once we have that established, everything else is like, okay, so what are we really playing with here? I know some people, including myself, I want some Dragon Ball representation in there. Give me World Tournament Goku versus Piccolo. Give me Demon King Piccolo versus Kid Goku. If you want to go even further back than that, Kid Goku versus Tien, Kid Goku versus Jackie Chun. Listen, if they want this to be the definitive experience for Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi, they need to go balls to the wall, do everything. I'm talking do OG Dragon Ball, do Dragon Ball GT, do the movies. And by movies, I mean even the Z movies. I'm talking like Wrath of the Dragon, Bio Broly. I dig from the bottom of the barrel. Do all the movies in this game, and I'm telling, and obviously do Super, right? Like they're clearly gonna do Super. But obviously the question is, how far into Super are they gonna go? Because I don't think manga characters are on board for this. You know, like I don't think so like, you know, Moro, Gas, Maris or Miris, however you want to call his name. I don't think any of them are up for grabs in this, you know, for like story purposes or even as characters. Because there's that whole thing with like ownership with like the people that own the rights to the Dragon Ball manga versus the people that own the rights to the anime and the games. It's some back and forth with that. That's why we haven't seen stuff like Moro or Ultra Ego Vegito in like games or extended media beyond the manga. It's literally for that reason. So we're not getting that. I don't think we are. But yeah, that's what we're working with. For story purposes, do everything. That's what I want. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys want from this. And also, hey, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, click subscribe, and click the dumbbell most importantly. But we still have some more tidbits here. There's some more tidbits here that we want to dissect. So next thing we want to go into, Sparking Zero box art is apparently ready. The game's cover art is already ready and features the style of the old designs, potentially those by Nakatsuru. And obviously these are the examples of the designs that they're talking about. So let's go by each of them one at a time and see what kind of design we're working with. The only Budokai Tenkaichi game that I owned as a kid, not saying that I didn't play the other ones, but the only one that I owned was Budokai Tenkaichi 1. That game had problems for sure, but I was sold on the fact that it was the first Dragon Ball game that had 3D destructible environments, and it made you feel like you were playing an episode from the show. Like you could blast people through mountains, you could freely move around the environment, and all of that was really cool. The one thing I did not like from this game, and I was so shocked even as a kid that they even had this, was all the transformations were locked. From what I understood, they were locked behind like their own character. So like, for example, you could not go from base Goku into Super Saiyan because Super Saiyan was its own character. So if you wanted to play as Super Saiyan Goku, you had to exit the match that you're in and select the character Super Saiyan Goku. And then you could play as Super Saiyan Goku. But if you want to play as SS3 Goku, you have to go back to the character selection screen and pick Super Saiyan 3 Goku. I'm just going into like flaws of Budokai Tenkaichi 1. Let's focus on the box art, right? I think this box art is sick. I don't know. Something about Goku rising as a Super Saiyan with like the silhouettes of the Z fighters in the back. That kind of looks really cool. I never noticed this before. Janemba is in the box art. I never noticed that before. I think the reason why is because when it usually comes to Dragon Ball box art, they usually just keep it to the main characters and maybe a movie character that is well known. And by well known, I'm not talking about like, hey, everyone knows Lord Slug or everyone knows Janemba, even though Janemba's a favorite. I'm talking like Broly. Broly's smack dab right here on the bottom right, okay? So if Broly's on there, that's expected. But I never noticed Janemba was on the box art. It makes me wonder, is he on any other box art? I don't think he is. I'm pretty sure he's not. So either way, Really cool box art. I like this design. But of course, it pales in comparison to the GOAT, right? I did not own Budokai Tenkaichi 2, but I can tell you right now, the box art for Tenkaichi 2 I think is the best in the series' franchise. Like if we're being totally honest. First off, you got the badassery of Trunks. Who doesn't like Trunks? We all like future Trunks. He's just so cool with his sword. He's just so freaking awesome. But it's this cool little thing where he has the sword, and in the reflection, you see the evolution of Goku to tell you, the person who's buying the game, guess what? You're playing Goku's whole story. You're gonna play Dragon Ball Goku. You're gonna play DBZ Goku. And yeah, baby, we're getting into GT territory as well. I'm pretty sure Budokai 1 got in. I'm sorry, Budokai Tenkaichi 1 got into GT territory. I think it did. I'm pretty sure it did. But just the box art here is just fire. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that disagrees with that. This box art is really sick. And then last but not least, the box art for Budokai Tenkaichi 3. This one, it's good. It's good. It just has that, and I could be wrong on this, but it has that Yamamoto, or right? Am I saying that right? Yamamoto art style, where it's very stiff, very rigid, with like the outlines and the expressions. I'm not a fan of that art style, at least modern Yamamoto. I'm not too keen on him, at least not anymore. I'm big on classic Yamamoto. I'm talking about like back in the Z movie era. But yeah, this just, everything here just looks stiff. But it still, on its face, looks cool. It still looks cool because you have Goku doing the Kamehameha in the front. You have Piccolo doing whatever the hell this is. I don't know if that's Hellzone Grenade or what. You have Vegeta doing Vegeta. And you have Goten and Trunks on the bottom to remind you. Oh, and Android 18. I don't know why Android 18 is on here. Maybe this is to let you know that Bio Broly is the selling factor at Budokai Tenkaichi 3. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I have not played too much Budokai Tenkaichi 3, but I am very much well aware that it's a fan favorite. It's the best iteration in terms of gameplay of the Budokai Tenkaichi formula, and it's a reason why it goes for like $100 to $200 or more to this day if you want to buy a copy of it. It's ridiculous. But box art, I think, is second only to this one. And then finally, this is fan art, right? This is not the official box art for Sparking Zero. For the love of God, I hope it's not. If it's in the style that, you know, the interview went in, we're going to get something like this. We're going to get some type of collage of the characters you can expect to see in the game. And it's going to be really cool, I think. Like, yeah, you know, I think I'm going to like that. I think I'm going to like it. Not this one. Don't do this. Don't just do Goku sitting there. Don't do DBZ Kakarot Goku, where it's just a red background and Goku flying on Nimbus and he's like, Don't do that. Please. Do not do that. But there's information on the box art. That's pretty cool. We have some more information. This one's a little more controversial. So here we have it right here. There will be no local split screen in Sparking Zero. Gasp emoji. The local split screen mode won't be available after all. Not because of the developers, but because of problems with Sony and Microsoft, which complicate the split screen adaptation. They are trying to find a solution, but for the time being, there will be no split screen. This is where I really got the whole take this with a grain of salt type of thing, because this interview is claiming that Microsoft and Sony has certain policies in place, and even this guy down here, is saying like, yeah, there's no such thing as a policy in there. It makes me want to go back and read the policy in a way. I mean, it's my job as an attorney to read this stuff, but it's like, yeah, like does Microsoft and Sony have something like that? I don't think they do. But the main tidbit to take from this is not really so much it's, you know, problems with Sony and Microsoft. It's the fact that there is not going to be local split screen for this game. And that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, because when there's precedent for a series that has established in its previous games that there was split screen multiplayer in the game and it was supported, there's going to be some pushback for games that start to not have it anymore, especially if it's a game in the same lineup. So like, for example, Halo. Halo was one of those games that really popularized couch co-op split screen, even for multiplayer. Not saying it didn't exist before, but Halo was a big push for games like that. Then you fast forward to Halo 5, where they basically remove it. They're like, nope, no local split screen. You're good. We're in the modern age. And then I think even in Halo Infinite, I don't know if they ever added it in, but I know at launch they did not have split screen for Halo. And again, it's stuff that's gonna piss people off no matter what. But this right here, at least for me, like there's really not a lot of games that I play couch co-op anyway. So the game not being split screen is not a bother to me, but I can understand if it is to other people, because they have friends and or family or loved ones that they know they would love to play couch multiplayer with, you know, for a game like this. And I totally understand that. So that's what that is. No split screen. That's practically confirmed, so to speak. Other than that, there was a couple extra things. These were the things that Super Chronicles, specifically tweeted on, and he more or less confirmed that his source was saying the same thing about, the box art, the thing with the split screen multiplayer, and of course, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 having a story mode, which again, let's see what they do with it. I want good stuff. I want good stuff there. There were a couple other things, though, that were from another translator that took the interview that was mentioned with the producer, and they explained a little bit more, put some more meat on the interview to digest. And some of those things come from this long list right here. This is where the things from here I would really take with a grain of salt, because other sources are not saying the same thing, but the sources that are saying the things that are similar, like the art, the box art, what else? The story mode in the game, they're all mentioned in this thread right here. So it's likely safe to assume that the other things are also true in this list. But again, just be cautiously optimistic with it, right? So one of the things I wanted to point out in here is the GT love right here. Characters from Dragon Ball GT will be included, possibly in the base roster or as DLC. The game will also include fusions such as Gogeta, Vegito, and Gotenks. This is where I am really having a big question mark, because what I don't want this game to do is just cut off things that would have just been included in the game already. Because here's the thing. GT is old as hell, right? GT came out in the 90s, all right? And what I think is really dumb is when the prior Tenkaichi Budokai games had GT characters in the game, and they decide to lock it off in this current one as DLC. I'm not a fan of that, right? Because it's like, if you're possibly going to include it in the base roster, just put it in the base roster. Why is DLC a question? Because one of the things I did not like that Xenoverse took part in was that same concept. They had a slew of characters in the base game, and there were characters that you would have expected to be in the game already, but they weren't. You had some movie villains that were not in there, like Bojack, that were in DLC. You had GT characters that were in DLC, so like Super Baby 2. And it's like, just if it's old, just leave it in there. Have it in the base game. I'm going to be a little pissed if GT characters are DLC. Now, here's the trade-off with that. I am very much well aware that this game has to have DLC. There's no way Bandai Namco is not going to have DLC for this game. It's just not happening, right? It is going to happen. But if you're gonna do DLC, do it with DLC that makes sense. So, like, for example, some Dragon Ball games, I think Xenoverse 1 did this, where they included everything minus some GT stuff. But for the most part, they included everything, right? Except for DLC stuff from the movie, right? At the time Xenoverse 1 came out, Resurrection F was the current Dragon Ball movie. It was the new thing. So to sell that game even more, they made Resurrection F DLC. So Golden Frieza, Blue, Super Saiyan Blue, all that stuff. They decided to make that DLC. And that was okay. That was okay in my book. So if they want to do it here, maybe do DLC for like Super, right? The superhero movie more specifically. So like Orange Piccolo, Beast Gohan, Pan, the Gammas, Cell Max. I mean, you got so many characters to make DLC on there. If you're gonna do DLC, do it for the most recent stuff from Dragon Ball. And I'm specifically not mentioning stuff from the manga because, again, those are characters that I don't think are going to appear in the game for reasons I mentioned before. But in the miracle that they somehow decide to do that, fine. Make them DLC. Make Ultra Ego, Granola, Bardock from Super, like from Dragon Ball Minus. Do those characters as DLC. But don't do GT. Don't do GT, man. That's going to be so annoying if GT is DLC. Of all things to make DLC. But aside from that, game is likely coming out in late 2024 or 2025. They want to avoid rushing so that they don't release an incomplete game, so kudos to them. Outfits can deteriorate during fights, and fights are designed to be longer than the old ones, so that's good. Graphics team, even better, has addressed criticisms regarding hair, for example. The graphics are improving overall, so that's good. Right here, I love seeing this. Characters from Dragon Ball movies will be included, possibly up to Beast Gohan. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like, okay, is that in the base game or is that DLC? And if that's the case, what are you doing for DLC? Because there is going to be stuff that they want to make as DLC. That is just a fact. So what is going to be DLC? Backgrounds are going to be really detailed and pretty cool. And that's about it. I mean, there's really not too much else outside of what I talked about. I mean, there's some minor stuff like the Xbox Series S and other minor things in here. But either way, that's pretty much it for the new tidbits on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Let me know what you all think down in the comments below. What is your wish list for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero? What do you need to be in the game? Your characters? Are you excited for what they revealed so far? Are you bummed out that there's no split screen? Just let me know your overall thoughts down below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, click the thumbs up. It helps the channel a lot more than you know. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and click the dumb bell most importantly so you stay up to date whenever we upload new content. I am Dr. Jason Attorney, folks. Have a great rest of your day and take care.